everybody? Hey, this is me, the notorious MJH. And tonight we're here with our co-host, Dolly Miller-Brennan. Gotta say hello, Dolly. People can't see you.
Used to get a lot
Dolly
of that.
Miller-Brennan.
Yes. We're happy to be here with Andrew Castanuela. We're happy to be here with Cass for Senate out of Texas today on the Second Amendment.
Yes.
Second Amendment, right.
Yay! And is everybody's internet working tonight?
Mine's working good.
Mine's working tonight, too. Last night was just awful. I mean, we did really well considering, but, I mean, my part of the show just totally sucked. All I did was bitch and complain about my internet not working the whole time. Dolly, I whined and cried. Dolly was a lot more professional than I was.
Well,
and then I hung up and I went downstairs. I was like, I ain't going to go into what I said. But I'm surprised I still have a place to live today. So anyway.
Well, we all had a rough time getting on. It was just terrible. It was just confusing and disoriented getting on because nothing would connect. So I had that too.
You there?
Yeah. I can't say I've had that problem yet. I mean, I've had some problems maybe with Facebook, but no, the internet's been good for me so far.
We there?
Well, Cass, tonight we wanted to talk on the Second Amendment, and maybe for, first of all, Andrew Castanuela running for Senate 2012 from Texas, U.S. Senate. And Cass, how can people get a hold of you and donate? You don't have to be from Texas to donate. How can they get a hold of you?
Well, actually, like you said, there's a couple of ways. One is if you go to the site, it's CAS for U.S. CAS for Senate, CASFOR SENAT.com. That will get you to the site, and you'll see the donate button or the contribution button. And if you feel like doing it by mail and sending a check, that's great as well. You can just go to the same place, and it'll give you the address, and it's down there on the bottom to it. P.O. Box 3363, Early, Texas 76803. And actually, that's right around these elections coming around. We're really going to pick up the steam here, and because as we look at these elections coming in November, to me, I see it as just the starting point of the change that's going to happen. It's really going to have to be sustained, definitely in 2012. Those new individuals who get elected this November and serve for the next 2 years, the public and the American citizens are pretty much watching them. And the last thing we need the American public to do is lose hope in those people who are trying to make change and understand that, hey, normal American citizens started this country. Normal American citizens can continue to run this country. You don't need a professional politician to do that.
What was it today? Did you hear? It was Biden who else said since the beginning of this nation that every new intervention, every new idea had government help to be able to succeed. The government inspired all new inventions. As Glenn Beck said, so when Bill Gates was sitting in his underwear in his daddy's garage, that was government inspired. So what you just said is really relevant to what's happening today.
Well, you tell that to Ben Franklin. Hey, sorry, Ben. All the inventions you made up, it was all our idea, remember?
Yeah, go fly a kite, you Democrat.
That's a good one, Mike.
And put a key on it while you're at it.
Hey, do we got time for a WTF news story?
Oh,
I heard
please.
only one today. It pertains to the 2010 election here. Let me try this. I'm going to try to do this professionally and test out the music and stuff like that. So let's see if I can do the...
It's time for WTF News. Real stories. Just really strange, weird, or just plain stupid. And now, speaking of strange, weird, and just plain stupid, here with the news is MJH.
Wow, it's amazing how smoothly things work when your internet and your computer work right. Let's hear a teletype in the background. Can y'all hear a little teletype in the background, or is it too low?
I can't hear it.
Okay, I'll have to turn that up later. What was this? It's all a clip, and it does that little introduction, then it goes into the teletype. But the last time I tried it, I made the teletype too loud, and you couldn't hear anybody talk. But anyway, let's get to the story. California congressional candidate gives new meaning to stink campaign. And this happened in Santa Ana, California. And yes, it's a Republican, but this is too hilarious not to mention. Republican congressional candidate Van Tran mailed out scratch and sniff postcards featuring his incumbent opponent, Democrat Loretta Sanchez. The scratch and sniff area of the postcard resembles that of a perfume ad, but when it's scratched, it smells like garbage and says, "It's the stench of Washington."
Okay.
I absolutely love it.
This is true. I got it from the Associated Press. The Associated Press never lies. They're wrong about a lot of shit and they misspell stuff, but they never lie.
I absolutely love it.
Well, does that include Juan Williams, too?
I'm not sure. I didn't research it that good, but it might. I don't know.
Well, that's a pretty creative tactic. Now, you gotta give credit for that one. When we talk about marketing, we always saying about the five senses, and boy, smell is one of the strongest senses that will pretty much stick to your mind anytime.
Oh, wait. Was that government inspired, that idea?
It's a practical joke.
Well, we better call Al Gore. Since he invented the internet, we might as well go ahead and keep.
I still don't get where he came up with that. How did he invent the internet? I don't get that.
No, actually, that's funny. I'm reading a book right now on James Friedman. Talks about the world is flat, and he talks about how Columbus discovered the world and it was round. Well, in the past few decades, because of technology, it pretty much flattened the world economically as well as technology. So, I can communicate in China with somebody in China in about 2 seconds.
That's
where, we couldn't find, or Columbus couldn't find, the country of India instead of finding, the West Indies.
Plymouth Rock. He thought it was India.
So,
that's true. He couldn't find his way out of a paper bag. That's exactly true.
Yeah.
This would survive a trip like that in that day and age.
But then bringing back to did y'all remember that old college philosophy book everybody had you read, Flatland, where everything was flat and there were flat lines, and all of a sudden a circle came down from the sky and they worshipped that. Then a sphere came down from the sky and then they worshipped that, and everything was flat. Nothing was. Anyway, it's another story. But Cass, for some people that don't know exactly what the Second Amendment, what exactly it pertains to, is it just buying a gun, or what is it, or is it just an organized militia, so that people understand just exactly what we're talking about, or when they see on the news the Second Amendment, so they can say, oh, I know what that's about, because everybody doesn't, have that background.
You're pretty accurate, Dolly, to be honest with you. And some of that has to do even with our education system in reference to teaching, our government classes, and specifically, the U.S. Constitution. I told you that I'm a drug and alcohol counselor by trade, and I go and I see one client at one of the schools, and then he just happened to notice that I was running for office, and he goes, "So what's the Senate?" And I kind of looked at him. He's a junior in high school, and I'm saying, "Okay, what's wrong with our education system here? If we're having a hard time understanding what you understand what the United States Senate is, or the House of Representatives, or the executive branch, or legislative branch, or the judicial branch." So it kind of goes back to, from that perspective, a lot of people probably will not be aware of what the Second Amendment is in reference to that. So if I recite the Second Amendment as it's written in the United States Constitution, the Second Amendment falls under what we call the Bill of Rights. And our country is divided or created under three documents: the Declaration of Independence, the U.S. Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. Okay, those are three documents that pretty much establish our nation. And within the Bill of Rights, which pretty much comes the amendments to the Constitution, it states that the Second Amendment is a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, if you read that, you say, well, that means I have a right to go ahead and bear arms. Bear arms basically is to be able to hold and use, as well as to keep arms. Now, the constitutional argument that a lot of individuals want to go ahead and say was, that's only for a militia. A militia is, an army or something like that. Well, that's not legally accurate, so to speak, because you have two types of army. You have an army that's consisted of the federal army, which is the United States military. They're organized, they're trained for peace and war. And then you have a militia. And a militia can basically be considered a group of citizens who train, for military duty in order to be ready to defend their state or country in times of emergency. As we reflect back on this, on our framers who put that in place, we got to think back of what was going on at that time. And as we had these new settlers that landed on the east coast of what's now the United States, they were in dispute with England. And a lot of these settlers, colonists as they were known, didn't really have any weapons. George Washington, when he was trying to fight the French and Indian War, and he was putting the Virginia militia together, which was a volunteer kind of army, citizens' army, some of these people would show up and they would have no weapons to fight, in this volunteer war. Oh, I should say volunteer, but to volunteer to fight in that war. So one of the things that the framers realized real quick is that American citizens have to have a right to bear arms so they can defend their state or their country or their home or whatever it may be. And we should not, the federal government, national government, should not infringe on their right to do that. At the same time, by equipping the civilians with arms, it empowers them to be a force within themselves to protect themselves, not only against the invasions of an enemy or a country, but more importantly, to defend themselves from the tyranny of a government. If the national government got out of hand, the citizens had an obligation to protect themselves from that government. Who's going to have the more regulated militia?
When you mentioned the state, which brings another question. As late as just June of this year, D.C. Bruce Heller, in regard to the Second Amendment, the Supreme Court held that this applies to states with their militias as well as private citizens and not just the federal government. So would that mean that a state also has the right to bear arms and has an obligation to protect its citizens, whether it's from a federal government out of control or a foreign enemy?
Well, actually, you're right. In that specific court hearing, it was a 5-4 decision where the court held that the Second Amendment protects an individual right to possess a firearm unconnected with service in a militia and to use that firearm for traditional lawful purposes, such as self-defense within a home. But it also goes back to what you're saying in reference to the state itself, is the states have a right to protect themselves. And that's actually, I guess, where the states kind of created what people want to assume is the real militia, and that's the National Guard. Because when we look at the National Guard, that is a state militia, and it's consisted of volunteers, and those individuals can be activated in federal service as well as to state service under the governor or the President of the United States or the Congress. The key there is I would challenge, is that really the only militia that our legal or legislative system is trying to say is allowable? Which I would disagree it's not, because a militia, once again, if I look at from the legal definition, is a group of private citizens. Period. A group of private citizens. It didn't say a group of federal citizens. It didn't say a group of citizens from the state of Virginia, or the state of Wisconsin, or the state of California, or the state of Texas. It says just a group of private citizens. So citizens themselves could actually technically, create their militia to defend their property and their country and what they see is a threat to them.
Well, I know Hillary and Obama are now trying to get the UN to promote a global gun ban, which obviously I don't believe in. But when we look on the Second Amendment and we look at Mr. Obama, he's opposed 4 of the 5 Supreme Court justices that affirmed individual rights to keep and bear arms. He voted against the confirmation of Alito and Roberts, and, I said he would not have appointed Thomas Scalia. He voted for an Illinois State Senate bill to ban and confiscate assault weapons, but that bill didn't go anywhere because it's so poorly crafted it couldn't make it through. Mm-hmm. He voted to allow lawsuits designed, and that's what they were designed to bankrupt the firearms industry. and he wants to reimpose the Clinton gun ban, and he voted to ban almost all rifle ammunition commonly used for hunting and sport shooting. I mean, and endorsing a 500% increase in the federal excise tax on firearms and ammunition. Do we have, again, a president, a federal government that's out of control in regard to wanting to take control away from private citizens, keep it in their hands so that whatever they do, we have no right to protect ourselves, and we've created a dependent society? Does that sound reasonable?
Well, that sounds very reasonable. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things as U.S. citizens we got to be very, very concerned about, is because it's the only thing that, other than the ballot box, you know, as last resort, you have your right to bear arms. I mean, you know, I think there was an interview the other day on some, I think it was one of the Republican candidates here in the state of Texas. They kind of went after him, the Democrats and the media went after him because he had made a comment saying that, you know, we should have a revolution against, the federal government. And of course, they took revolution to mean a military revolution, maybe even as a political revolution, where you can do that at the ballot box. But even if we look at our American standards of diplomacy, our United States military is the last line of diplomacy. In other words, we don't use our military to support our national policy objectives unless there's no other alternative than other to use that form of diplomacy, if you know what I mean, use of force, so to speak. So would be the case with our private citizens. You know, if you take away their ability to defend themselves, how are they going to overcome or fight back to a federal government or a national government that has all the weapons and has all the force and has all the resources against, individuals with sticks and bow and arrows, and, the most lethal weapons first, rocks.
Exactly, and sticks they had in Czechoslovakia when the government came in on them. They had sticks to defend themselves.
So it creates that balance of power, and I mean it's a strategic move. I mean, because that's definitely something you want to do. Is even in a time of wars, you definitely want to take out the most lethal weapons first, so that then you can come in with your ground forces and do what you need to do from a conventional perspective.
That's the first thing you take out is you take out the water towers and the TV antennas and you knock down communications and all that stuff.
Exactly, no way to communicate. So that way they don't know where to apply their lethal force. And then you take away their lethal force because they don't know what's coming. And then you can come in then with your conventional style intervention and say, okay, now let's do the mop-up or the cleanup, which is what we kind of, if you even looked at, and that's why we're going crazy during Gulf War, World War I, G1 as we call it, because you could see it all happen and take out all their communications, take out their ability to communicate, and then come in. And that only lasted, 2 days?
They couldn't influence the daggone weak-minded if that ever happened.
Mm-hmm. They couldn't organize themselves. They couldn't come back. And, I mean, it's what you're looking at. And it's coming from different fronts, so to speak, because, I mean, you can take away the weapons. You still got to take away the communication. And it goes back to what I was talking earlier, it's being a flat world. Right now, the communication is the Internet. It is the cell phones. It's these devices that automatically have changed or shifted the balance of power, even for our political party system, away from those elitists who kind of control all the information to now, boom, everybody has access to the information at the push of a button.
Yeah, they run their mouth about it.
And in regard to our Second Amendment, it appears that Mr. Obama is really trying to bypass that by using the UN and for the U.S. government to sign international treaties that then all U.S. citizens would be subject to those gun laws that are created by foreign governments. So it looks like he's trying to bypass the Second Amendment. That he's trying to go through the UN to do it, intending to force gun control and a complete ban on all weapons, through the signings of these international treaties. And
they already outlawed guns in Chicago, right? And now D.C.
Right, and he supported that. He supported
Of course he did. See, I've been, in a city where there were no police for 2 days, and I see why you need to be able to protect yourself and your community and your home and your family. And what happened was after her evacuated everybody, and before people got back, they had a curfew, but there was no police out there to enforce the curfew. And we found, out of all the people we found trying to loot, the dog catcher was at the house across the street looking in there with a flashlight. We didn't know he was a dog catcher, but we just see somebody with a flashlight looking in the window, and we went over there. And, he had the uniform on and everything. He goes, oh, we got a complaint about a dog barking or crying or locked in the house. Or, somebody said the dog might be locked in the house. People left him in there. We knew the woman. She's like this old hippie, loves animals and stuff like that. Yeah, she evacuated, but she took her animals with her. We know better. So we're like, well, first of all, we ain't got no phones. We ain't got no cell phones, nothing. How did anybody call you? Second of all, we know the lady and stuff like that. So, you got the dog catcher trying to loot people's houses. And, we don't use weapons. We weren't walking down the street armed, but, we had a campfire going on in the backyard. And, Virginia Beach, I lived a block and a half from the resort area, the Strip. And Virginia Beach, you can't even see the stars at night because of all the lights. It's called a red glow. And with no electricity, you could see every star in the sky, and it was weird because I'd never seen that before down there. But, yeah, you could do 90 miles an hour on the interstate. You could do as fast as your car would go. And there were no cops. You could do whatever you wanted. But people, you know what? Most people didn't. The only thing you really had to worry about was looters. And it's like you were just walking down the street, and, without electricity, your freezers ain't going to keep your meat and stuff cold. So everybody was like having a cookout and stuff like that. You just be walking down the street, people, they were neighbors, but you never seen them before. You just walking down the street and they're like, "Hey man, you want a pork chop?" It was pretty cool in a way. But thinking about that, what if we don't have the cops to call? What if we don't have the EMS to call? What if we don't have hospitals to go to? What if something ever happens? Well, we got to protect ourselves. We got to protect our community and make sure nobody's breaking into our neighbors' houses and stuff like that. So when Obama, with his little, this is what, it's so complicated. I can't even really explain it in a couple of minutes, but just so you know what I'm talking about, the hidden agenda theory that Larry Ballard was talking about the other night, this hidden agenda, everything is, not everything, but Obama, he's sneaking everything in on a hidden agenda. That health care plan and trying to do away with guns and trying to do away with this, that, and the other thing. He really is trying to make this a socialistic government. And I've seen this from day one. And most people tell me I'm nuts. Oh, no, Obama, he's bringing respect back to this country. People don't hate us anymore. And you know what? I could give a shit, honestly. I'm keeping my gun. Okay? This health care bill, yeah, sure, people shouldn't be denied health care for pre-existing conditions and all this other stuff. But this health care bill they got, it doesn't just pertain to old people getting treated and not getting denied health care. And we have Medicaid. We have
Medicare.
What do you call that other stuff?
That's right, and we also have health care we have health care for children that their parents can't afford it. We already have that. We didn't need another program.
Yeah, WIC, and that feeds kids. But we have all these programs. I don't know anybody dying because they don't have health care. I don't know anybody starving because they don't have welfare or food stamps or WIC. And, I do see homeless people a lot around here holding up signs and stuff like that. But I don't know what their deal is. I'll help somebody out. But, I'll give them a buck or two here and there. But I don't see why they have to be doing that. Do you?
Well, actually, there's quite a bit you said there. One is that you're right.
I'm like that, sorry. And that's quiet for like a day, and then all of a sudden, oh, yeah, here it comes. Sorry about that.
The dam breaks, yeah.
Yeah, but there's in the homeless. One of the things is in arguments on both sides, and that's where I kind of look at the situation. Every situation's individual, because you have homeless that are homeless because they don't have a job and they don't have a family, and they don't have no postal address, they don't have a place so they can say, I want to go apply for a job, but I can't because I don't have a residence, and because I don't have a residence, you won't consider me for the job, so therefore I'm homeless. I'm homeless because I have an addiction or I have a mental health disorder, and that puts me out on the street because I can't hold a job, and so forth. And then you have those who will manipulate some of the system, so to speak. And there are, I know you said you probably hadn't heard anybody die that didn't have health care. To be honest with you, there are some that are out there, but we have to take a look at exactly, each individual case is how come. Because it's not like the services are not there to assist those situations. And it's where I, from a perspective of saying, okay, yeah, we can give illegal aliens, Medicaid, but I can't give an American citizen, who's paying taxes, health care on Medicaid, then I have a significant problem with that.
See, I was just about to say, because, like these homeless people, and look, a lot of them, this is what I heard, I don't know for sure, and like you just said, exactly, every case is different. My grandmother used to say, never judge a man until you walk 10 miles in his moccasins. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, I've heard some of these people, they're felons, and, stuff like that. That's why they can't get a job. Well, they're actually still on the run and stuff.
Exactly. And some even have a felony because, they may have used drugs. And not trafficked. I mean, like I said, I did a story, a research paper on this not too long ago on the prison system. But a majority of the people in the prison system are there because of either some drug or alcohol-related activity, whether that was usage, possession, or even some did some trafficking. We were housing these people who really probably don't need to be confined, but more be rehabilitated. Such would be the case.
Like
and then once they get rehabilitated, they can't get a job when they get out. Because, they have a felony on the record. People automatically judge them. Say, yeah, I'm sorry. That felony was when I was 19 years old. I got busted for, having less than an ounce of marijuana on myself, or less than 2 grams or something like that. But it's with me for the rest of my life. Therefore, you're not willing to hire me, and therefore my pay wage is going to be a certain wage, certain area. And those are intricacies. I strongly feel that the federal government should not get involved, but definitely from the state level. There's one thing that I'll commend.
On the same, I'm sorry, but on the same coin, but flip side of it, you have Mexicans who'll come up here and stand in front of Home Depot until they get a job.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm not going to disagree with that one either.
and that brings
the
me
mentally
back.
challenged, the people who don't really have it all together. There, man, there's this guy who used to live down the street from us. Had a house. It was filled with newspapers and crap, and he lived in the woods. There was an old abandoned trailer, and I don't mean like a home trailer. I mean like some kind of office trailer. It was just abandoned there. He lived in there, burned candles and stuff like that. Yeah, mental health, that's an exception, but there's programs out there for that as well. But you have to go get help. They're not going to come find you in the woods normally. Maybe they bring you there, but outside of that, people aren't going to come looking for you to help you. You got to go find help.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that brings us back to the felony situation, and I think when you say some people are felons, and I think they're using that to say we need to ban guns because these people are felons, and, they're the ones that are going to be picking them up. And if no one...
What I really meant to say was on the run.
Pardon?
What I really meant to say was the committed felonies, they were on the run. But
okay.
But yeah, felons. Yeah, it's kind of hard to get a job if you have a felony as well. But especially if it's a sex crime, because you have to register for that national sex registry thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that would make it hard to get a job. But I just looked at that the other day because I deal with the public and everything, and there was one person I wondered about. He wasn't on there. I'm glad to see that he wasn't. But just a couple things he told me didn't add up. So I looked, and he wasn't on there. But I seen somebody I did know on there. A client of ours at the company I worked for. And actually, he's a mental health case, but he's a contract. We do transportation, and he's contracted under some kind of state program and stuff like that. Actually, we don't transport him anymore, but we did. And he's a little bit retarded. I'm not sure if that's the proper term to use, but yeah, just so you understand,
Yeah, I got you.
What is the proper term? Because Down syndrome and being retarded, that's two different things, isn't it?
Well, the state of Texas just changed it from mental retard to IDD, which is intellectual or developmental delayed.
I tell you, we've become a nation of abbreviations. I hate that. I say the entire word. Now you see the commercials for RA. What the hell is RA? Rheumatoid arthritis. Don't you know it? Can't you say it? And then we wonder why our children don't know what's going on because we're a nation of abbreviations.
Well, I know those TV commercials, those Pfizer ads and stuff like that. Where they run down the side effects. Yeah, you could have explosive diarrhea, a heart attack, stroke, all these risks they list, and it's like, you know what? I'll keep the fucking herpes. I'm sorry.
On that note, Cass, what can we do to protect our Second Amendment rights? They're saying, well, people that are homeless, that, they can have guns on them, they're not stable, they're not secure, so therefore you can't have guns because you've got all these people running around. What can we do to protect our Second Amendment rights, and what can you do when you get into office to help us do that?
Well, by the way, I really don't have herpes. I was just using that for an example.
Yeah, we know.
Go ahead.
Yeah, try to back out of that one now.
All the girls out there, Mike wants to get married and have babies, so he does not have herpes.
No. Well, she's talking about something I said the other night. She said, I don't know. I was cracking a joke, and she goes, "You ought to have kids." I was like, "What's?"
Well, what was it? Larry was saying that that other races are outweighing us with having children.
Oh, now I get it.
And he said they're having 6 to 7. To ours 1 to 2, and I said, "You need to go have some babies."
I see. So there could be little notorious MJHs running around.
Absolutely, because everybody else is outnumbering us. So it says he said we're going to be soon outnumbered, and I said, okay, you need to get out there and have babies. So that was right there. Now you get it.
Good, Cass.
Well, what can we do? What can you do to help us protect our Second Amendment rights?
Well, the first thing is that what we can do is that, first of all, legislation has to start at the local level. And when we're talking about as city council members, we're talking about county commissioners, we're talking about state legislatures, we're talking about state governors, we're talking about state senators, because a lot of this, from the federal perspective, pretty much they're going to be very cautious in trying to get in there and make something happen on a national level. Because as they tried that, the Supreme Court will shoot some of that down and they're saying, well, it's hard for us to kind of make that happen. So if we can infiltrate it from the bottom up, i.e. having Chicago, having in D.C., have these other places who will change their ordinances or whatever it may be, then they're more than likely to go ahead and get some attention to go their way. So from a local level, people need to kind of start looking at the perspective and look at the propositions that are on their ballots, because elections just don't happen every 4 years or every 2 years, what we like to call midterm and presidential elections. They happen almost on a continuous basis, and there's always some city ordinance or some petition that's on a ballot up for vote, and people need to be more active in that process of understanding that those are the ones that most appropriately affect them at the local level. So that would be the first
every 6 years.
What's that?
And the Senate election.
Well, the senator serves every 6 years, but every 2 years you're having a whole new batch is coming in.
I thought you were running for Senate this year, and I was thinking, well, they do things different in Texas. It was just a brain fart.
Well, we do things different in Texas. That's a whole other country.
Well, yeah, because this is the midterm. The presidential election is next year, so it's the senatorial election. But then the senatorial election is every 6 years. And I'm having a brain fart going, well, how come people aren't running for Senate in Virginia this year? Because I thought you were running this year. I was like, wait a minute, it's getting close to the election. You're pretty relaxed, dude.
Well, no, when it comes to what we can do on a local level, it almost seems, and some people are saying it almost seems like we're having to fight our own government. That our own government seems like, for instance, Obama refused to sign a friend of the court brief in support of the individual Second Amendment rights in the Heller case. So it's like we have a president that is fighting. It's like we have to fight our own president to have our Second Amendment rights. And
that's where I come in as a legislator at that level is to introduce legislation that will protect our Second Amendment rights, so that it takes away a lot of the executive authority that the president is trying to use through his agencies. Because he has no authority unless it's granted to him through the Constitution, and from that perspective, we control the purse, and we control, for instance, just go back to the to what we call the preparatory committee for the United Nations Arms Trade Treaty Conference. That we're talking about, Hillary Clinton and everybody trying to get this passed through the United Nations, and therefore, if the United Nations passes it and the president signs off on it, then oh gosh almighty, it's gonna change the the rights of the U.S. citizens, and technically it would, but guess what? All treaties have to be ratified.
And that takes us down a dangerous path if it is ratified. It's just, it's the gun control here, but that puts the United States under an international body.
Exactly, but that's where the checks and balances comes into play. You can have a president or an executive who wants to do this, but he does not have the total constitutional authority to make it happen, because it has to be ratified by the United States Senate. In other words, the United States Senate has to vote on his agreement that he made, and if we say no, which is why we want to get so many conservatives in the United States Senate as well as in the House of Representatives, then you're able to say, boom, forget your treaty, take it back to the United Nations. Don't mean squat to us, because we're not going to give up our Second Amendment right.
So that's why we need you in the Senate, because while Congress writes the laws, the Senate has to put them into motion.
Well, in this specific case with the United Nations, because it's an international treaty, the Senate, the United States Senate, would be the one that ratifies it. Regardless of what the president wants to do, the Senate, which represents the people, would have to ratify that treaty. And as it stands right now, I was reading on it, and said that they're backing off on the international treaty of putting the handgun policy in there. From the ambassador, Roberto Garcia Mortan, who's representing the United States, or I should say he's the chairman of that meeting, to where, they're saying, oh, okay, we're not going to put, these handguns in there, even though Mexico and the Netherlands, want the civilian firearms included in the treaty. It looks like it's going to be excluded from the treaty, which basically means, then therefore the treaty will not, will be meaningless. And then the treaty, I think, was more or less, to arms trade, between nations and, radical organizations and stuff like that. But, it still goes back to the United States Senate, who has to ratify that treaty.
This keeps us free American citizens with our controlling our own destiny without having an international body, because if they can tip the balance with this, everything else is just going to fall into place. And I think maybe people don't know that Obama was a member of the board of directors of the Joyce Foundation, and the Joyce Foundation is the leading source of funds for anti-gun organizations and research. And I wonder how many Americans actually know that.
Probably not a lot, because that's the first time I've heard of that one.
Yeah, it's a fact, because when I research something, I make sure I document it, because otherwise people are really going to come back and hang your butt from the highest tree, And he was, he was a member of the Joyce Foundation. Not that they haven't done that to me
with
before.
With the cocaine hanging out of it.
No, the butt goes stick them in there. I tell you, again, as a joke, Mr. Obama has apologized for everything under the sun. And the one thing he has not apologized for, when he was bending over and kissing the hand of an Arab sheikh, and I thought, when is somebody going to apologize for that butt? Because my daddy, an old Texan, would say you could drive a team and wagon past that and never see daylight. So anyway, that's my Obama joke. But, he was a member of the board of directors of the Joyce Foundation. People don't know who he is, and it's like we're fighting our own people. Like today, like when he was talking to Latinos and blacks, and he says, you have to go out there and fight against the enemy. That, to me, is divisive. He's dividing different ethnic groups.
Who's the enemy, the white man?
Pardon?
Actually, the enemy is the Constitution.
Yeah, it's just he's dividing us. This is not what a president goes out and says. You just don't do that and say, well, Republicans can ride along, but they got to ride in the back. I know he's one. He's not the sharpest knife in the drawer. But the point to the story is...
Actually, he's pretty damn intelligent. That's the scary part.
No one is that stupid. No one can, obviously...
No, he knows what he's saying. He knows what he's doing. And
he has to know that.
He's got advisors and speechwriters, and he knows before he gets on TV and says anything, or on his video website or anything. And do you know who the lead videographer is? The guy who heads up his video department is? Have you guys ever seen a movie called Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle?
Is that where they're trying to go to get the burgers?
Yeah,
White Castle burgers?
Yeah, it's like an Arab guy and an Asian guy. and they go on this adventure. Doogie Howser's in the movie,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all about going to White Castle to get these hamburgers, and the whole movie's adventure going. Well, anyway, that guy, the guy who played Kumar, I don't know his name. I'll have to look it up on IMDb. But he went on to play a doctor on House, on the TV show House. When he was on that show, he was. If you guys ever watch House, you know it's
mm-hmm.
what do they call some kind of like they come up. It's all these weird diseases, and they have to come up with figure out what it is, and they analyze it and everything. Yeah, exactly. Diagnostics medicine. That's it. So anyway, this guy was on the team, Kumar. You know, different character, and I can't remember his real name. On that show, this was a couple years ago. You're watching House one week, and he's this brilliant doctor, cracking cases and stuff like that. Next week, it's just like this sad solemn show because he killed himself right off the bat. They wrote him out of the script because he got picked up by Obama as the top. All the videos you see on WhiteHouse.gov and everything, all the videos.
Right.
Kumar is the guy in charge of that.
That's right. And his parents said it wasn't suicide. They didn't think.
What? No, he didn't really kill himself.
He was in the movie.
Well, then who was that? I'm thinking of somebody else.
Yeah. No, his character on House killed himself.
Oh, okay.
Because during while they were filming the season of House, he had to go. Like Obama appointed him as a head videographer of the whole videography team. So they wrote his character. That's the way they wrote him out of the script. Is he killed himself?
Okay.
Because he just all of a sudden wasn't there for the next episode.
I see what you're saying. All of a sudden he eliminated him. Well, Obama also voted not to in Illinois. He voted not to notify gun owners when the state of Illinois did record searches on them. So here's another erosion into our freedoms, another second derivative of the Second Amendment rights. And it's like we're fighting our own government, and if we don't get a Senate in there that's going to be responsive to us, I mean, in Wisconsin now, they have the right to carry. And a friend of mine was in the state legislature, and he really was not for that, but he went with what his constituents said. The people want this. I'm a representative of the people. I'm elected to represent their wishes. That, to me, is a true statesman.
Mm-hmm. Well, even if you look at it from the perspective of, there's a challenge of constitutionality of the federal handgun ban for, those law-abiding citizens between the ages of 18 to 20 years old. Fairfax, Virginia, the NRA, is challenging the federal lawsuit that prohibits, 18 to 20-year-olds to legally purchase a handgun through a federally licensed firearm dealer.
Yeah, he did, and this was sometimes, to help young military people, and he has supported. Yes, absolutely.
And Cal Penn, that's his name. And Kumar, his real name is Cal Penn.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
I just looked it up.
So basically, in the United States District Court up here in Northern District of Texas in Lubbock Division, is we have James de Cruz who's actually challenging saying, hey, look, if I'm 18 years old, one, I have to register for the draft. Two, I can be given an M16, an M60, a bazooka. I could be given, a missile launcher, a tank, and I have the right to vote and have the right to die for my country, but yet I cannot go down here to the local legal licensed firearm dealer and purchase a weapon because I'm 18. Now, if that's not unconstitutional, then tell me what is.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. Mr. Obama does not want the citizens to be armed because I really feel he wants a dependent society. And if we're left like they were in Czechoslovakia in the 50s, if we're left with sticks to defend ourselves, then they're going to push through exactly whatever they want. I mean, he supports mandatory micro-stamping, mandatory waiting periods. He supports a one-gun-a-month handgun purchase restriction. He supports a ban on inexpensive handguns. Well, that seems somewhat innocuous at first, but think about it. Can the ordinary person afford a really expensive handgun with which to defend themselves? I'm not saying everybody should run out and buy guns.
Desert Eagle starts at $1,200.
Mm. Yeah, I'm not saying run out and buy a gun, but these are all things to keep you from doing it. He even supports a ban on the resale of police-issued firearms, even when the money is going to police departments for replacement equipment. So we're fighting our own leader.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 9mm do need to be replaced. They're kind of like they don't function that well and stuff like that. That's a whole other topic, but yeah, they need to get something else.
Well, that's what I got is a 9mm.
You have a 9. Yeah, I was just reading something where 9mm they've been found where they're not accurate and they're malfunction a lot and stuff like that. I've never heard that before. But they're just now coming up with it, kind of like where they come up with those recalls for Toyotas, where ever since 1985 they've had bad brakes, but nobody knew it until they saw it on TV last week. So I don't know. I don't have a 9. So I don't know.
No, I think it's just like anything else, even like a car is, well maintenance. You got to take care of it unless it's, it's functional. Not everything's built to last forever anyway. But if you take good care of it, it's going to take care of you. And all I really needed to do, I needed to be able to stop the person in front of me.
Right. Right. Well, yeah, I mean, like the police and I think a lot of the military, I'm not sure, but it's like a Colt 9mm government issue they use. And I think it's that particular model that they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what can we do, Cass? Like, one thing we can, like you said, on the local level, you can work with various referendums that are on the ballot that people may not be aware of. Like you said, a lot of little elections in between. That you may not be paying attention to, and everyone should pay attention to every election, such as in Chicago. Otis McDonald, a 76-year-old Army veteran, lived in a high-crime area of Chicago, and they refused to allow him to have a gun to defend himself, so he sued the city over the unconstitutional law, and he won. So there's another case of a citizen doing what he should do, but every citizen isn't going to do that.
Yeah, and it's very difficult for every citizen. I was thinking about this as I was driving to another county earlier in the week, and that was that, every citizen wants to fight back, but unfortunately sometimes they don't have the monetary value or the monetary means to hire an attorney to fight back, to take the government to court, to take the federal agency or the bureaucracy to court, because that's actually, when you asked me earlier, what can I do as a senator? Well, one of the things that I could do is with colleagues of mine is to, start appealing a lot of these bureaucratic regulations that are totally unconstitutional, and getting rid of a lot of bureaucratic agencies as well.
Absolutely, because the Founding Fathers, they understood the right to keep and bear arms, because that arose from what they would say, the natural rights of self-defense and resistance to tyranny. And it's almost like we're in the middle of a tyrannical government surge here, and we have a tyrannical administration trying to tell us we can't do that. So it's not our right. It goes beyond that. It's almost our obligation, isn't it?
It's our survival. Actually, that's the way I kind of look at it. It's our survival as a republic.
Hey, excuse me. They fired 50 test rounds, and they lost 8 to 10 during due to sizing and expansion. Then they lost another 10 to bullet seeding, and then 12 more. So out of that, that's 10, 20, 32 out of 50. So like 18 actually shot accurately.
Huh. I wonder how far they were shooting. 50 yards is all I need. Because I'll be
out in Arizona in Scottsdale. My girlfriend belongs to Scottsdale Gun Club, and she took me shooting, and I had never touched a gun in my life. So we got in there, and I found out I enjoyed this. And we left, and I said, well, tell me what you think I do. She said, I thought you'd do well. I said, come on, tell me. She said, I didn't think you'd even hit the ball. But I found out I really liked it, and I was really accurate. And she said, you have a Glock 40. You can protect yourself. Believe me, you can. So I found out it was something that I enjoyed doing. What impressed me was there was a young man, and he had 2 small children with him. I mean, they were 7, 8, 9, probably 9, 10 years old. And he was teaching them safety and firearms inside of a gun club, showing them how to do it. And I was encouraged by that. He was teaching them the safe use of firearms. And I talked to him for a minute, and he said, and talked like we were talking here, and he wants his children to grow up in a free country and believes they have the right to use these. And even the Supreme Court's ruling directly cited Texas. It cited us I've briefed several times confirming that the individual rights secured by the Second Amendment are fundamental rights that must be recognized, not just by the federal government, by state and local governments as well. Mm-hmm. So they even cited us even though I'm not living there now, they even cited us, in our brief saying, we're right in Texas, we're correct on this.
And I'm glad to hear that you said, because, just the right to bear arms comes with a responsibility. Just like the right to consume alcohol comes with responsibility. The right to have sex comes with responsibility.
Even driving is a privilege and not a right.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So, when they're taking, he's showing his kids specifically how to be responsible with, with a weapon. That's really the way things need to be, the way it should be taught. Because a weapon, and I strongly believe in guns don't kill people, people kill people. And that's the honest to God truth. I can have my 9mm sitting here on my counter all day long, and it's not going to get up, walk across the street, and and shoot anybody. It takes an act of somebody else to make that weapon. So actually going after the weapons themselves, such as is the case here in the University of Texas, where we had the individual who did the shooting. It goes back to one of the laws that specifically say, my 18 or my 19-year-old daughter who's going to Angelo State University, she can't carry her 25 in her purse or something like that because it's on a state campus. But yet, if she leaves campus, she can go to the public library downtown in San Angelo, Texas, and carry that weapon in there.
So it's like when that happened at Luby's, if somebody had been allowed to have one, that might not have happened.
Or even it goes back to the University of Texas. If people or individuals had the right to carry a weapon, that's actually when it goes into Fort Hood. Because I'm familiar with being on a military installation and what their laws about having handguns, and you can have them in your homes or you have them registered in the armory and have to put them there. But even then, it was those individuals who had a weapon who took down the individual who massacred all the soldiers there at Fort Hood.
Absolutely. So what we can do is pay attention to all of the elections, pay attention to all the small elections they have, where it might just be a ballot referendum. And I've seen that happen too. Okay, on such and such a day, we're going to put up this referendum. We want you to go in and vote for it. So people need to pay attention to that, and they also need to analyze their candidates and see who's going to protect their Second Amendment rights, and research and find out what those Second Amendment rights mean to you. It's not just having an army, but it's your right to stay as a free American citizen and live in a republic.
And it's another thing.
Kat's explained what militia actually is, because I think a lot of people hear militia and they think about these extremists, and we do have extremists in this country.
Yeah,
and they hear militia and they think like guerrilla militia and stuff like that, and that's not necessarily what it means. But speaking of the election, I believe this is the last Wednesday before the next election, Cass. Is there anything you'd like to get out there? Any type of message you'd like to relay, to people?
Yeah, and to all, definitely to all the individuals out there who pretty much listen, and as we rebroadcast this on, on both my my Facebook website and other areas, is that number one and important thing, and then I kind of hit on this last week, it's important for everybody to vote. Now, of course, myself, I'm a conservative. I consider myself a Reagan Republican, and I say Reagan Republican because I believe in a lot of the Reagan philosophy of how to be conservative and how to be balanced and how to address issues with common sense. And that's the approach that, I think we need to kind of look at our individuals who are running for office. But the most important thing, and I kind of said it earlier, it's the survival of our republic at this point. And of all the research and the studying that I've been focusing on, is I see more and more how we as normal American citizens have lost a lot of say in our individual rights in whatever sphere we want to pursue in, because there have been bureaucracies, there have been rules, there have been regulations, there have been policies, there have been agencies, there have been all these individuals who are making these policies without our representation. And our elected officials in the state legislatures and in Washington, D.C., are not listening to what we, the people, are wanting. And it's time for we, the people, And I'm not talking Democrat, Republican. When it comes straight down to us, we're all Americans. And it's time for we the people, we the Americans, step forward and inform our legislators. Say, hey, look, don't forget, we are the boss. And I'll fire you in a heartbeat if you can't seem to listen to what I have to say. And if you break the law, you pay the price just like somebody who broke any other law. No more of these nice little federal prisons that you can go to in like a Medicaid or medical holiday or anything like that. No, you're going to do hard time so that you understand that a lot of millions of people trusted you and you broke their trust. And I see, and the other thing going back on too, and I'm going to be partisan here to this perspective, and that it goes back to, Senator Reid down in Nevada, who ends up saying that he can't understand why a Hispanic would be a Republican.
Oh, my God.
And that is because we love our country, we love our families, we believe in God, and by God, we don't take crap. So we are going to be very conservative, Senator Reid, and you may try to divide us and make us want to try to clean it up a little bit here. You may want to try to divide us and get your handout as a federal government, but you don't know Hispanics very well. We don't like handouts. We like to work for a living. So this goes out to all those individuals and Hispanics, as well as individuals who are out there, Tea Party, all those who real true conservatives out there. You go out there and you take charge, because now is the time. If you don't do it now, you're going to pay for it later, guaranteed.
Well, Cass, can we plan on having you back on next Wednesday so you can discuss with us what the election was, what happened, and give us your points on, your assessment of what that after the election, what that means to us as a nation.
Actually, that is excellent. I would love to do that, because look at the crystal ball and see how things are going to play. I'm sure y'all have heard some of the things about, some of the old guard of the Republicans just have not came around just yet, because they're wanting to put, some of their own people into to the newly elected Republicans in Washington, D.C., and put some of their staffers on there. And I've always, for myself personally, to be honest with you, when I get to Washington, I'm going to bring my staff, but I'm not going to be stupid, and I'm going to have somebody from local to be on my staff.
I think good, and then you can give us your perspective on what happened in the elections and what that means to us as a nation.
Will do.
Oh, we'd love to have that.
All right, well, Mike, Dolly, I sincerely, as usual, thank you. God bless you. It was really interesting. I really enjoyed the show.
God bless you, too. And I'm also going to have to run.
Dolly, you did as well. Hey, this is really great points you made, Andrew. Mr. Castanuela.
Call me Andrew, please.
Cass.
There you go.
I can finally say your name. I want to say your name. Mr. Andrew Castanuela, everybody.
Y'all take care.
Yeah, take care. I'm going to have to run. I have some work to do, and my eyes are better today, so I'm going to get some pictures edited tonight.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.